You know those old Pavlov behavioral experiments?
Oh, right, with the dogs.
Yeah, exactly. A scientist rings a bell, and a dog instantly salivates. And we hear about those studies and usually just think, well, that's simple animal biology.
Right, like it doesn't apply to us.
Exactly. But consider this. According to the source material we are unpacking today, the average person unlocks their phone over 100 times a day.
100 times, wow.
Yeah. So if you sleep, say, 8 hours a night, that means you are reaching for that device, swiping and staring at a screen roughly every 10 minutes of your waking life.
Every 10 minutes.
Every 10 minutes. Your pocket buzzes, your hand twitches, your heart rate bumps, and you drop whatever you are doing to just look at a piece of glass. I mean, we are the dog, and the bell is ringing all day long.
It really puts our illusion of free will into perspective, doesn't it?
It really does.
We like to believe we are, entirely in control of our attention, but that physical twitch, that automatic reflex to check the screen, it's a deeply conditioned response.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is to explore a struggle so universally modern that we barely even register it as a problem anymore, and that's smartphone addiction.
Which is everywhere.
Everywhere. We are pulling our insights today from a digital wellness and language learning script, and it's titled The 15-Minute Digital Detox. So, okay, let's unpack this, because if someone told you they were doing literally any other activity every 10 minutes, like, checking the refrigerator, opening the front door to stare outside.
We would immediately recognize that as a severe compulsion.
Right. We'd think they needed help. Yet doing it with a smartphone is just considered, normal life. So we really need to elevate the conversation here and understand the biological mechanisms at play. What is happening inside our nervous system that makes this compulsion so relentless?
What's fascinating here is that we have to move past the sort of pop psychology definition of dopamine. You often hear dopamine called the feel-good hormone. But in neurobiology, it is far more accurate to describe it as the molecule of craving, motivation, and anticipation.
Anticipation. Okay, so it's not just about the reward itself.
Exactly. Our source material points out that every time you get a notification, a like, or a new message, your brain gets a highly potent hit of this molecule. It isn't just about the pleasure. It's about the intense craving that precedes it.
Yeah, the source uses this analogy of the smartphone as a digital candy machine, which makes total sense. You pull a lever, you get a piece of sugary digital candy. But wait, I want to push back on this for a second.
Sure.
If dopamine is just about craving and reward, reading a really gripping thriller novel gives me dopamine.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I'm constantly anticipating the next plot twist. So why is the digital candy machine of a smartphone biologically different from just reading a great Stephen King book?
That is a crucial distinction. The difference lies in the pace of delivery and the friction required to get the reward.
Friction, like how hard it is to get it.
Right. When you read a thriller, you have to engage your imagination, decode words, and wait whole chapters for the payoff. It's a slow, sustained burn.
It takes effort.
Exactly. But with a smartphone, the friction is basically zero. You swipe your thumb a quarter of an inch, and instantly, a highly engineered algorithm feeds you a novel image, a joke, or, some social validation.
Just boom, boom, boom.
Right. It is rapid-fire, frictionless stimulation. And because of neuroplasticity, which is your brain's ability to adapt to its environment, your brain physically wires itself to expect that exact, frenetic pace of delivery.
So the brain starts to think that receiving a reward every 3 seconds is just the baseline for reality.
Exactly. And that leads to a phenomenon neuroscientists call a dopamine deficit state.
Dopamine deficit.
Yeah. When you put the phone down, your dopamine levels don't just return to normal. They plunge below baseline. This is what the source text brilliantly refers to as the itchy brain.
Ugh, the itchy brain. This was a massive aha moment for me. I really want you, the listener, to reflect on your own habits lately. Have you ever been reading a book, maybe just 2 pages into a chapter, and suddenly you feel this physical restless itch to check Instagram?
It happens to everyone.
It does. And it's not because the book is boring. It's because your brain has plummeted into a dopamine deficit and is screaming for its digital candy to restore the baseline.
Precisely. Your brain is essentially going through a miniature withdrawal. It makes the slow, steady, beautiful pace of real life feel frustrating and intolerably dull.
Wow, so if this neurochemical hijacking is altering our baseline for reality, how does that internal chaos bleed into our physical bodies? Because the source makes it clear that this addiction doesn't just stay locked in our heads, it manifests physically, starting with something called text neck.
Yes. And the mechanics of text neck are far more destructive than just having a stiff neck.
Yeah.
Mechanically speaking, an upright human head weighs about 10 to 12 pounds.
Okay, 10 to 12 pounds.
But when you tilt your head forward and down at a 45-degree angle to look at a phone in your lap, the gravitational pull on your cervical spine increases dramatically.
Because of the angle.
Right. You are suddenly forcing your neck muscles to support the equivalent of 50 to 60 pounds.
50 to 60 pounds. But it goes beyond just muscle degradation, doesn't it? Because when I'm hunched over like that, my whole posture collapses.
That's exactly where the cascading physical effects begin. When you hunch forward, you literally cave in your chest.
Right.
This compresses your diaphragm, meaning your lungs cannot fully expand. As a result, you start taking shallow upper chest breaths.
Oh, I catch myself doing that all the time.
Most of us do. And that reduction in oxygen to the brain physically triggers your sympathetic nervous system. That's your fight or flight response.
Wow. So I might be scrolling through a feed trying to relax on the couch, but my physical posture is actively signaling to my brain that I am in danger. I'm physically inducing an anxiety loop.
You are artificially spiking your own cortisol levels just by the way you sit while looking at the screen.
That is terrifying. So if we are bent over and chronically physically anxious during the day, how does this device keep punishing us at night? The source brings up blue light, which, I know messes with our sleep, but let's get into the actual biology of how it operates.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at the incredibly specific cells in our eyes called IPRGCs.
Okay, what?
Intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells.
That is a mouthful.
It is. But basically, unlike rods and cones, these cells don't process images or shapes. Their sole evolutionary purpose is to detect the energy and wavelength of photons to set our circadian rhythm.
Oh, interesting.
For hundreds of thousands of years, the only source of blue wavelength light was the sun at high noon.
So when that specific blue light hits those cells, it sends a hardwired signal to the brain saying, hey, it is the middle of the day, be alert.
Exactly. And as the sun sets, the lack of blue light signals the pineal gland to flood the body with melatonin, which is the crucial hormone that drops your core temperature and induces deep restorative sleep.
But let me challenge that for a second. Because pretty much every modern phone has a night shift mode or a blue light filter. Doesn't that solve the problem?
It's a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
Oh, really?
Yeah. While those filters reduce the specific blue spectrum, the proximity of the light source shining brightly 6 inches from your retinas in a pitch-black room, combined with the cognitive stimulation of whatever you are reading or watching, it still violently suppresses your melatonin production.
So the brain is just confused.
Right. Your conscious mind knows it's 11 p.m., but your biological clock is receiving an aggressive signal that it is daytime.
So what does this all mean? It means you are tired, but wired. Your physical body is exhausted from the day and from the tension of text neck, but your brain is chemically locked in an awakened state. And because you can't sleep, what do you naturally do? You grab the phone and keep scrolling, further suppressing the melatonin. We are literally fighting a losing battle against our own evolutionary biology.
It is a physiological trap.
Yeah.
But as severe as the internal damage is the anxiety, the lost sleep, the dopamine deficits, the source material shifts its lens to a consequence that might be even more damaging.
The social aspects.
Right, how this biological exhaustion bleeds outward into our physical interactions with the people around us.
Yeah, if we are chronically exhausted and craving stimulation, how does that impact our relationships? The text introduces a portmanteau, phubbing, phone plus snubbing.
It's a slightly silly word for a profoundly damaging behavior.
I have to admit, I am totally guilty of this. Let's do a quick scenario.
Okay.
Let's imagine you and I are at dinner, a really nice restaurant.
Sounds good. I'm sitting across from you.
Right. And I am trying to share some really exciting news, I just got a massive new job offer.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thanks. But right in the middle of my sentence, your phone buzzes on the table.
And instead of maintaining eye contact, I just sort of glance down at the screen. I start mumbling, yeah, that's great. But I'm clearly distracted by an email.
Yes. Exactly. And honestly, watching someone do that just completely deflates me. It feels terrible. Why does a tiny break in eye contact cause such a visceral, negative reaction?
Well, this raises an important question about how human nervous systems interact. As a species, we co-regulate our nervous systems through facial mimicry and sustained eye contact.
Co-regulate, like we balance each other out.
Yes. When someone is sharing something vulnerable or exciting, they are seeking a biological connection.
So when you broke eye contact in our scenario to look at the screen, you didn't just distract yourself, you severed that co-regulation.
Exactly. When you sever that connection for a device, you trigger a micro fight-or-flight abandonment response in the snubbed person's brain. The expert analysis in the source makes a very sharp point here. Phubbing isn't just rude. It sends an explicit silent message that says quite literally, my phone is more important than you.
Ouch. My phone is more important than you. I really want you to think about this. Have you been on the receiving end of phubbing recently, where you were pouring your heart out, only to realize the person across from you was mentally miles away, hijacked by a piece of glass? Or, harder still, have you been the perpetrator?
The social cost is subtle, but highly corrosive. Over time, if every dinner conversation is fractured by the anticipation of a notification, the depth of that relationship inevitably becomes shallow.
Okay, so we've mapped out the devastation here. We are stuck in a dopamine deficit, our lungs are compressed from poor posture, our melatonin is suppressed by artificial sunlight, and we are triggering abandonment responses in the people we love.
It sounds incredibly bleak when you list it all out like that.
It really does. But the source material pivots beautifully into actionable recovery. It outlines a 15-minute fluency and focus plan. It's a digital detox, but an incredibly practical one. It's basically a diet for your phone.
And importantly, this isn't about throwing your device into a lake and moving to a cabin in the woods.
Right, which isn't realistic for anyone.
No. It is about actively redesigning your environment to regain intentionality.
Let's break down the 3 actionable steps in the plan. The first one is called the morning delay. And the rule is simple. Do not touch your phone for the first 15 minutes after you wake up. Why is that specific window so crucial?
Because of the state of your brainwaves. When you first wake up, your brain is transitioning out of delta waves, which is deep sleep, into theta and alpha waves.
Okay, theta and alpha.
Yes, and this is a highly receptive, programmable, and very fragile state of mind.
So waking up in that peaceful alpha state and immediately opening your email or Instagram, it's almost like waking up in a quiet room and instantly walking out into a crowded stadium of people screaming demands at you.
That is a perfect metaphor. By flooding your brain with external demands and a dopamine spike the second you open your eyes, you instantly force your nervous system into a reactive, high cortisol state.
You're stressed before you even get out of bed.
Exactly. You are letting an algorithm dictate your baseline for the entire day. Delaying that input by just 15 minutes allows you to proactively set your own biological baseline.
I love that. Okay, the second step the source recommends is establishing a no-phone zone. Specifically, banning phones entirely from the dinner table to combat the phubbing epidemic we just discussed.
This leans on the power of environmental design. Willpower is a finite resource. Eventually, it just depletes.
So true.
If the phone is sitting on the table, even face down, your brain is still actively spending cognitive energy suppressing the urge to check it.
Because you know it's there.
Right. But if the phone is simply in another room, the temptation vanishes. You are physically forced to co-regulate and to be present with the people around you.
Out of sight, out of mind. But the third step, here's where it gets really interesting. The source recommends putting your phone in black and white mode, or grayscale. You go into the accessibility settings of your phone and completely remove all color from the screen.
This is arguably the most brilliant biological hack in the entire text, because it attacks the neurochemistry of the addiction at its root.
How so?
Well, tech companies spend billions of dollars leveraging color psychology. Think about notification badges. They are always a vibrant, aggressive red.
Right, little red dots everywhere.
In evolutionary terms, red signifies urgency, danger, or, ripe, calorie-dense fruit. It bypasses our logical brain and commands our visual novelty receptors.
And the app icons themselves, too, the bright blues, the neon greens.
They are meticulously engineered to stimulate your optic nerve and trigger that reward anticipation. They make the digital candy look delicious.
So when you go into your settings and turn all of that to grayscale,
you instantly short-circuit the slot machine. You still get the information, you can still read the text or see the map, but your brain is denied the visual sugar rush.
It's just boring text.
Exactly. Instagram in grayscale is remarkably depressing to look at. Suddenly, your phone stops being a vibrant amusement park and goes back to being a simple tool, like a calculator or a hammer. Making the phone intentionally boring physically depresses those novelty receptors.
It's an incredible way to take your power back. And to wrap up this detox plan, the source shares a mindfulness exercise that functions almost as daily homework.
This is a great exercise.
Yeah. At the end of your day, you identify 3 things you did without a phone, and you frame them explicitly in the past tense. For example, I talked to a friend, I drank a coffee, I looked out the window.
Framing it in the past tense is a very deliberate cognitive exercise. It forces your brain to actively retrieve memories of physical tactile reality that had absolutely nothing to do with a digital interface.
It's grounding.
Exactly. It reminds your nervous system that the physical world, the aroma of the coffee, the warmth of the sun through the window is real, fulfilling, and exists entirely independent of the screen.
It proves to your brain that it doesn't need the digital candy to survive. So let's take a step back and look at the whole picture we've painted today. We've seen how our devices hijack our neurochemistry, trapping us in a dopamine deficit state that leaves our brains constantly itchy.
Right.
We've explored the hidden physical tolls, how text neck compresses our lungs and triggers anxiety, and how the blue light from our screens actively suppresses our melatonin and just destroys our sleep architecture.
The physical cost is huge.
Huge. And we've felt the sting of phubbing, the evolutionary cost of severing eye contact. And most importantly, we've outlined a mechanical escape route. Delaying the morning scroll, protecting the dinner table, and using grayscale to short-circuit our visual novelty receptors.
It is a comprehensive look at a deeply ingrained habit. But by understanding the precise biological mechanics of how the trap works, we gain the tools to dismantle it.
I really want to challenge you, the listener, to implement just one of these steps today. Try the 15-minute morning delay tomorrow. Let your brain wake up before walking into that screaming stadium. Or, right after this deep dive ends, go into your settings and switch your phone to grayscale. See how your brain reacts when it suddenly gets cut off from its steady supply of brightly colored digital candy. You might be shocked at how quickly the magnetic pull to scroll just completely evaporates.
And as you experiment with that, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We constantly walk around feeling that our digital lives are intensely urgent. We feel a biological imperative to answer that message, check that alert, or see that photo right this exact second.
Yeah, everything feels like life or death.
But if simply removing the colors from our screen, just turning the pixels gray is enough to completely break that spell and make us put the device down, what does that reveal about the true nature of what we are consuming? Are we actually engaging with vital, meaningful information? Or are our incredibly advanced human brains just being endlessly manipulated by shiny, bright lights?
It really makes you wonder who is actually pulling the levers. The next time you feel that automatic twitch in your hand when your pocket buzzes, remember, you don't have to be the dog waiting for the bell. You can just let it ring.